This is Theodore reporting live, and tonight's story is one that refuses to fade quietly into the background because just when it seemed like the Duggar family had begun to distance themselves from a past filled with controversy and painful revelations, a new arrest has pulled them right back into the spotlight, and not in a way anyone hoped to see, because Joseph Duggar has now been arrested, marking the second time a Duggar son has been tied to extremely disturbing allegations, and the weight of that reality is hitting hard, not just for the public, but for the family members themselves who have spent years trying to move forward, trying to rebuild, trying to separate their identities from the environment they were raised in, and now they are being forced to confront a situation that echoes so much of what they have already endured. And what makes this even more intense is that voices from within the family are not staying silent this time, with Ginger Duggar speaking out publicly alongside her husband, and Amy Duggar also stepping forward with strong emotional reactions, making it clear that this is not just another headline. This is a deeply personal and painful moment that is reopening wounds many thought had started to heal. And to truly understand the impact of what is happening right now, you have to look at the history of this family, because the Duggar name didn't become controversial overnight. It was once associated with a carefully constructed image of a large, ultra-conservative household built on strict religious values, brought into millions of homes through their TLC show 19 Kids and Counting, where Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar presented a lifestyle centered around discipline, structure, and clearly defined roles. And for a long time, that image worked. People saw a family that appeared organized, united, and committed to their beliefs. But behind that image, there were layers that would eventually be exposed. And over the years, many of the Duggar children began to tell their own stories, stories that painted a much more complicated and often troubling picture of what life was really like growing up in that household, describing a controlled environment where strict gender roles were enforced, independence was limited, and expectations were placed on them from an early age, especially for the older daughters, who often took on the responsibility of raising their younger siblings, effectively sacrificing parts of their own childhood. And alongside that came claims that they were not properly compensated for their participation in the show, adding another layer of complexity to their experiences. And as these accounts started to surface, public perception began to shift, but nothing changed that perception more dramatically than the scandal involving the eldest son, Josh Duggar, whose 2021 arrest, trial, and conviction shocked audiences and exposed a level of wrongdoing that shattered the family's carefully maintained image. And the fallout from that situation was massive, not just publicly, but internally, as Jill Duggar later revealed that she and her sister Jessa were put in the difficult position of defending their brother in interviews they didn't want to do, feeling pressured to protect the family's image in an environment she described as fear-based, where going against their parents felt almost impossible. And over time, Jill opened up about the emotional toll of that experience, including the tension it created with her father, as she felt judged for making her own choices, while he appeared more lenient toward Josh. And all of this led many people to believe that the rest of the Duggar children would take that moment as a turning point, a wake-up call that would push them to reevaluate their upbringing, to question the beliefs they were taught, and to create a different path for themselves and their own families. And for a while it seemed like that might be happening, as several of the older siblings distanced themselves, spoke out, and began building lives that looked very different from the one they grew up in, giving the impression that healing was taking place, that lessons were being learned, and that the cycle might finally be breaking. But now, with the arrest of Joseph Duggar, those hopes are being shaken, because the allegations against him are serious and deeply troubling, tied to an incident that reportedly allegedly took place in 2020 during a family vacation, which only came to light after the alleged victim's father confronted him, leading to statements that were later used in the case and ultimately prompting authorities to step in and make an arrest on charges related to inappropriate conduct involving a minor. And as if that were not enough, there is also a separate case involving Joseph and his wife Kendra, who were reportedly charged with child endangerment following a home inspection that revealed door locks on the exterior of children's bedrooms, a detail that has raised significant concern and drawn eerie comparisons to past actions within the family, particularly the measures once taken to keep Josh away from other children. And while a spokesperson has stated that the charges against Kendra are unrelated to the allegations against her husband and that she is not accused of participating in his alleged crimes, the situation as a whole is raising serious questions about patterns, about environment, and about whether the deeper issues within the family have truly been addressed. And as this unfolds, Ginger Duggar has become the first sibling to publicly speak about the situation, addressing it on a podcast with her husband Jeremy, where she shared just how heavy and overwhelming the past week has been, describing it as one of those weeks that feels like years, and admitting that she did not think her heart could break in the way it has, expressing deep pain not only for herself but for everyone affected. And her words have resonated with many who understand that this is not just about the present moment, but about a history that continues to impact her and her siblings, reopening wounds they have worked hard to close. And fans have responded with sympathy, hoping that the daughters in the family can eventually move forward without being constantly pulled back into these situations. While Amy Duggar has taken a more direct stance, speaking out with a mix of devastation and anger, making it clear that her primary concern is for the alleged victim, and emphasizing that the child should have been protected and safe, while also criticizing what she describes as a toxic system within the family, one that has historically prioritized protecting its image over facing the truth and holding individuals accountable, a claim that aligns with what has been shared in the past by other family members, including Jill, reinforcing the idea that this is not just about isolated incidents, but about a broader culture that may have contributed to these outcomes. And for many observers, this situation feels like a step backwards, not just because of the new allegations, but because of what they represent, a reminder that the progress people thought they were seeing may not be as solid as it appeared. And for the siblings who have tried to create distance and build healthier environments for their own families, this moment is likely reinforcing the importance of those boundaries, shifting their focus even more toward protecting their own households, their own children, and their own sense of safety, rather than trying to maintain connections that may feel increasingly fragile. Because when something this serious happens, it changes everything. It forces a reevaluation of trust, of priorities, and of what moving forward should look like. And as the public continues to process this story, there is a growing recognition that the Duggar family's narrative is far more complex and far more troubling than it once seemed, moving from a picture-perfect image on television to a reality marked by repeated controversy, difficult truths, and ongoing questions about accountability and change. And as we continue to follow these developments, one thing remains clear. This is not just a story about one arrest or one family. It is a story about patterns, about the long-term impact of environment and upbringing, and about the challenge of breaking cycles that run deep. And until those deeper issues are fully confronted, the risk of history repeating itself will always be there. This is Theodore, and this is a story that continues to unfold with serious consequences for everyone involved.